it's Ev, and this is a video about how I knew I was transgender. I asked on my Instagram if you wanted me to make a video about how I knew I was trans, or the worst part of being trans, and I'll probably make the other one as well, but more people voted for this one, so if I look like I haven't slept, it's because I haven't slept. So yeah, how I knew I was transgender. I'm female to male, by the way. I'm a trans guy, just in case that wasn't obvious. And I used to watch videos like this when I was figuring myself out, so it might be useful to people, or you might just be interested. And as well, there are a lot of misconceptions. I've had quite a few comments like, just because you like blue, that doesn't mean you're a boy. Or, just because you like football, that doesn't mean you're a boy. And I don't even like football, and I don't really care about the colour blue, so I don't really know what the logic in those comments are. Me being trans, it's definitely not anything to do with liking any colours or sports. So hopefully this will clear some of that up. But yeah, I had heard a little bit about trans people before I started realising that maybe I was trans. I didn't hear much about them when I was growing up, but I definitely heard about like Jazz Jennings and stuff a few years before I came out, probably when I was like a teenager. Yeah, I'd heard a little bit about trans people, and I remember thinking that I can kind of relate, and that does kind of sound like me, but I felt like if I was trans, then I'd know I was trans. I thought, I can't be, because if I was trans, I'd already know, and like my parents and doctors and stuff would already know, and it would already be a clear thing. I didn't think I'd have to go through a process of figuring it out. But then in May 2016, when I just turned 20, I saw a YouTube video. I think it was Max Aaron. He wasn't even talking about how he knew he was trans, it was just some video related to him being trans, and I just remember thinking to myself on that day, maybe I should allow myself to question it, like there's no harm in that. I wasn't planning on like coming out or anything, I just thought I should allow myself to start really thinking about it, because it really does sound like me, and that there really was something going on with my gender. At that point I was very like masculine presenting, but again I really wasn't like, I have short hair, I like jeans, I must be a guy. It really wasn't anything like that. But yeah, I started questioning it and like researching more into it. I've thought about it every single day for a year, because it started in May 2016 and then I eventually came out May 2017. Yeah, I started learning about trans people. I started learning about gender dysphoria, and I do have gender dysphoria, but at the time, again, I kind of felt like if I had dysphoria, I'd already know it was dysphoria, and like when I felt dysphoric, that wasn't a word I'd had growing up, so that wasn't the word I described my feelings as, so I kind of felt like, oh, but I don't have gender dysphoria. Even though now, looking back, I clearly did for as long as I can remember. But yeah, I remember I made a huge list on my computer of like childhood signs and reasons I thought maybe I am trans. I had like over 100 things on the list, which I then deleted, because when I was going back and forth thinking am I, aren't I, at a point where I thought maybe I'm not, I probably deleted it. I could make a separate video about childhood signs, because I don't want this video to be really long, because a lot of my videos end up being very long and then no one actually watches more than 2 minutes of it. But yeah, some things on my list were like, when I was about 11 and I was in a very like tomboy phase, I remember I used to ride my bike down the street and I used to look in the reflection of the car mirrors, and I always used to wear a hat as well, because I didn't like my hair being feminine. Even when it was short, it was still like feminine. I didn't even realise that was why at the time. But yeah, I remember looking at my reflection and seeing myself, like thinking that I looked like a guy and feeling very like comfortable and happy about that. I didn't like when strangers used to call me a boy, because then everyone would laugh and it'd be very awkward. I talked about this in a few different videos. But yeah, when I'd see myself and feel like I looked like a boy, it made me very like happy and feel most comfortable. Also, I remember like for my whole life, when anyone would ask what my name was and I'd say my birth name, I just feel like this, like it isn't even me, like I'm just watching someone else's life on a screen, like I'm just like an actor playing a part of this person who I am not. And then stuff to do with my body as well. I remember just being 100% certain that I just absolutely wasn't going to go through puberty and start my periods and grow breasts and stuff like that. I just felt certain, even though logically I knew that that would happen, because like obviously I went to sex education at school and stuff, but I remember just feeling like absolutely not, this won't happen to me. And when I did start like developing a chest, I felt like something was wrong, but it just felt like it wasn't normal. But yeah, in general, just a lot of discomfort to do with my gender, my body, and a lot of like disassociation, not just feeling very like disconnected. And now I know that a lot of that's dysphoria, but at the time I didn't know that it was. I started to realise that transitioning really was something I wanted and felt like I needed, and over the year when I was trying to figure myself out, I just realised that it wasn't going to go away, like my desire and need to transition wasn't going away. It was very consistent once I realised that I could actually do it, like there was nothing else. I tried using labels like calling myself androgynous and gender non-conforming and stuff, and like, yeah, I didn't have a problem with being gender non-conforming. It's absolutely fine to be a tomboy or to be a masculine woman, that's absolutely fine, but it just didn't feel like it was me. I still would just always have this desire to transition, and I realised that my feelings of dysphoria and not feeling like a girl were very consistent throughout my entire childhood. And then I also thought to myself, is it being caused by anything else? Because I know people say maybe young girls just like ashamed of themselves, or it's because of misogyny and stuff, and I thought, is there any other reasons leading me to want to transition and feeling like this? And I figured out that no, there was nothing else causing this. I was trans. It's quite hard when people ask me how I know I'm trans or how I know I'm a guy, and they want me to sum it up into one sentence, because like I said, I spent a whole year figuring it out, and it can't be summed up into one sentence. That's why it's hard to explain. People say being a guy isn't a feeling, and it's not a feeling like being sad is a feeling or being angry is a feeling. It's not like one emotion. It's just my entire personality and through my entire life. Like, I'm a guy. It's just who I am as a person, so it's hard to put it into one sentence. But basically, I just don't identify as a girl. That identity has never fit me. It never has, never will. There's nothing that could happen that would make that identity fit me. And identifying as a guy, that does fit me. And since I came out and started transitioning, it has made me feel much better in myself and much more me. Some parts of transition are permanent and some parts aren't. Stuff like changing my name, pronouns. I didn't really change how I dressed that much, but a little bit I suppose. Like gender expression, that isn't permanent, so you can try another name and see if it fits you, and if it doesn't, you can just change it back. Obviously it's a bit harder if you change it legally, but just asking your friends to call you a different name to see how it feels. Stuff like that isn't permanent. So when I first came out and started socially transitioning, I suppose if that didn't feel right, I could very easily have just gone back, but at every point of my transition it's just felt more and more right, and I felt more and more like comfortable with myself and like I'm actually being myself. At this point I'm like 100% sure I'm trans, because my transition has made me so much more comfortable. I feel so much less dysphoric, and even though I'm more aware of what my dysphoria is, that doesn't mean it's made my dysphoria worse. It just means that I didn't have the word dysphoria back then. I still had dysphoria. But yeah, I don't want anyone to see this and think like, if they feel unhappy with their life or they're not comfortable with their body, the transition is necessarily the answer, because the only reason it worked for me and made me feel happier is because that really was the reason I was unhappy and uncomfortable. If I just didn't like my body because I was self-conscious, but I was actually a girl, transitioning wouldn't have made me comfortable. It made me very uncomfortable. A transition only works if you're trans. And you have to be extremely careful when you're like taking testosterone, having surgery, stuff like that that's permanent. Also, if you are gender non-conforming and you like to, I don't know, if you're like a tomboy, that's fine. You can be a tomboy, and trans people, like trans guys, we're not saying being a tomboy makes you trans, you must transition. If you're not trans and you're a woman or a girl and you just like to wear jeans and t-shirts, that's fine. That's great. If you're a man and you like to wear a dress, that's great. That doesn't make you trans. We're not saying it makes you trans. No one is saying you have to transition. Express your gender however you want. Be as feminine or masculine as you want, or androgynous as you want. Like, my advice to anyone that is questioning their gender though is, well, what I did, I just took a lot of time to think about it. I wish I had been able to speak to people about it as well, because I kind of kept it a secret when I was questioning it for a year. I mentioned it to a few people, but not that much, and when I did mention it to people, it wasn't really people that knew much about it. Yeah, it can take a lot of time to figure yourself out, and that's okay, and it's okay to question it for a long time. It's okay to be questioning for years. Don't rush into anything. Also, though, don't let transphobes on the internet tell you that you can't be trans. No one can tell you that you are trans. No one can tell you that you're not trans. Only you can figure yourself out, and sometimes that takes a lot of time. But yeah, don't let anyone tell you what to do. It's okay to experiment with your clothing, with your hair, with your name. Like, when I was questioning myself, I bought a binder and a packer, and I saw how that felt for me. Like, experimenting with packing made me realise how much I felt like I was meant to have a penis, which is like, yeah, that was like a big deal in figuring out something must be going on, because I don't think most women feel like they should have penises. It was no one thing, it was like all of these things added up together, and I realised it was so consistent. It wasn't caused by anything else, it wasn't going away, there wasn't anything else that could be done about it. Like, everything added up. So I can't give you one way I knew I was trans. I can't tell you what being a guy feels like in one sentence, because it's not an emotion, it's not one feeling, it's all of these things. That's why it took so long for me to figure it out. But yeah, it's okay to experiment, it's okay to question yourself, talk to other people. You can talk to other trans and LGBT people online if you can't talk to anyone in real life. Stuff like starting testosterone to see if you like it or not, that's a bad idea, because that's permanent. You have to be sure. Getting top surgery, you can't just get top surgery to see if you want a flat chest or not. You have to know. And I mean, it's normal to be scared, but I'm just saying, don't be like, I might be trans, I might want a flat chest, I'll get top surgery. But I really don't think that's happening. If that's happening, it's a very small amount of cases. I don't know whose doctors are referring them for that. But yeah, it was a hard, long process, basically. Also, I probably talked about this in my video about dysphoria, but at the start, I didn't feel like I had dysphoria because I didn't feel like I was trapped in my body, and all of these like common phrases that trans people say, which I absolutely believe they feel, but I didn't really relate to them. Like, I don't feel like I'm trapped inside of my body. Like, I am my body. I don't feel like I'm my skeleton and I'm in the wrong flesh sack, you know. I don't really feel like that. So yeah, that kind of made me feel like I don't have dysphoria, and so I'm not trans, and yeah. But it turns out I am trans. Basically, now I've transitioned and I'm a lot more confident and comfortable and happy in myself, and this feels definitely very right. Like, when I hear people call me Evan and he and stuff, like, it just feels normal. It feels like I'm actually living my life. I'm not like pretending to be someone else. Like, everything's a lot better now, and so yeah, definitely trans. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. You can DM me on Instagram if you want to talk or anything. Subscribe, because I'm like 25 away from 1,000 now, I think, which would be cool. Comment any suggestions. Leave a thumbs up if I didn't already say that. Yeah, that's about it. I'm sure I'll remember that I forgot to say a lot of stuff that I wanted to say, but oh well.